And we're back. So at this point, if you're watching the second video, that means the entire front of your notes for solving equations by square roots is perfect. It's good to go. So the back is going to be where I start. I'm going to jump right in with number 9. So in this case, the cat, I'm going to make our little scenario here about the cat and the little bird. The cat is this 3 hanging out with you and the little birdie on your shoulder. Just, jumping around at the bird, trying to get its attention. It's not a good situation. So the cat's got to go first. So when this number is right beside the variable, or coefficient is what we call it, that means multiplication is happening. What is the inverse of multiplication? You should say division. So that means you divide both sides by the cat, by that 3. So 192 divided by 3, use your calculator if you need to for that, or work it out by hand. You're going to get 64. Cat's gone. 3 divided by 3 is 1, or that cancels out, leaving you with just you and the little birdie on your shoulder. W squared. Got to get rid of that. So something is squared, and we want to unsquare it. We square root. Square root of 64 is 8, equals, square root cancels out it being squared with W. Remember, it could be 8, but you're only giving me half of the possible answers. Or it could be -8. So including that is crucial to you identifying that you understand that there are 2 answers for these problems when we're finding the square root. If I'm going too quick with the whiteboard, pause it, copy down what you need to, work out the next one, and then start playing it so you can check your work. Number 10, k squared divided, being it's written as a fraction, we say division, divided by -5 equals -20. So division is going to mean that I need to multiply. I'm actually going to erase the number 10 because I need a little bit more room to work this out. So the opposite of dividing is multiplying by -5 on each side. In this case, that cat's sitting underneath your chair. It's uncomfortable. You got to put the cat away so that it's not bothering the little birdie on your shoulder. So put that over 1 if you need to. Those cancel out. You do not need those. We've worked on these with fractions before. K squared equals -20 times -5. Negative times a negative is going to equal a positive value of 100. So we have k squared equals 100. You are not done. That little birdie's got to go back in the cage. So square root both sides, the opposite of squaring something, cancels out, leaving me with k equals square root of 100 is a nice 10. And then I remember to include my plus or minus, because 10 times 10 is 100. But -10 times -10 is also 100. Number 11, 341 equals p squared plus 52. Okay, cat's hanging out with you, being annoying, it's got to go. So that means it's plus 52. You subtract 52 on each side, giving you 289 over here. P squared comes down, so it's just you and your pet bird hanging out. Got to get rid of the 2, so you're going to square root both sides. So that means P equals, what's the square root of 289? I think we already did this one on the front, didn't we? So maybe it's going to sound familiar now. 17 or -17. P equals plus or minus 17. All right, number 12, m squared divided by 2 equals 72. Similar setup to what we had to do for number 10. 2 is in the denominator, or we're dividing when it's in the denominator. So it's underneath your chair, you've got to put the cat away, get it in a different room, whatever, it's bugging the bird. So 2's cancel out, leaving you with m squared, m squared equals 72 times 2, 144. Notice these are working out to be really pretty so far because we keep getting nice, perfect squares. That's not always going to be the case. So to get the bird back in the cage, you got to square root it. All right, bird's gone. Square root both sides, because whatever you do to one side, you've got to do to the other side, and you get 12 plus or minus. Could be 12 times 12 equals 144. Could be -12 times -12 equals 144. All right, great. Number 13. This one looks easy. You're like, wait, why wasn't this on the front? This one only has one thing to do. Hopefully you don't think that because you're like, nope, I know when there's a negative in the front, that's something I'm going to have to move. So in this case, the cat, your third wheel, is this negative sign. So if that's bugging you and you're like, I don't really get it, put a number value there so you do of 1. So you need to get rid of that -1 before you can think about putting the bird back in its cage. So you'll divide both sides by -1. So p squared equals negative divided by a negative cancels out and gives you a positive 324. Pretty large number. If you're not sure what this one is, go ahead and just square root both sides. P squared, we can take the square root, it's just p. 324. Well, I know that the square root of 289 is 17, so it has to be bigger than 17. So I'm thinking it's at least 18 or bigger. So if you do that math, you're going to get 18 plus or minus, because it also could be -18. All right. Done with 13. So things are going to change a little bit here in 14 with the type of answers we're left with. 4x squared equals 9. So currently, this one looks just like number 9 almost, in the way that you have a coefficient in front of your variable and your exponent, and it's equal to a value. So in this case, the cat is 4. Your birdie is your exponent of 2, and this is their cages, separate room, you getting them away from one another, essentially, and then away from you at the end. So to get rid of the 4, it's beside the variable, so that means multiplication. The inverse of multiplication is to divide. Cancels out. The issue here is, does 9 divided by 4 work out to be something nice? So if I grab my calculator, I'm like, well, 8 divided by 4 is 2. So if I do 9 divided by 4, 2.25. Please do not put that as your answer, because I don't know how to take the square root of that. So we're just going to leave it as a fraction. X squared equals 9 over 4. There's a reason for this and why we're leaving it as a fraction. Because if you look at 9, what's the square root of 9? 3. 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So I'm asking about the square root because I still have to square root both sides in order for that bird to go back in the cage, for me to get rid of my exponent of 2. Divide both sides. I'm sorry, square root both sides. Do not divide. Wrong word. Square root both sides. The square root of x squared leaves me with x. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 4 is 2. Even though it's written as a fraction, I still include the plus or minus in front of my answer. The only time we did not include the plus and minus in front of my answer when I had a number that was squared in the problem was when I got 0, because there's no such thing as a positive and negative 0. 0 is in between those positive and negative values. So you leave your answer as a fraction. Do not divide that out and say my answer is 1.5. I will mark that wrong. Leave it as a fraction, please. All right, 15, 81 times n squared equals 16. Cat is 81. The little bird on your shoulder is your exponent of 2. So they are being multiplied, so you need to divide both sides by that cat, which is 81. That's going to cancel out to give me 1. N squared equals, same situation is going to happen. I know 16 divided by 81 is not going to be something nice. It's not going to be a whole number because my numerator is smaller than my denominator. So I'm going to bring it down. 16 over 81. I'm just rewriting that a little bit smaller now. Square root both sides. So that leaves me with n. That's what I want. I want to get the cat and the bird in their cages, away from me in the other room, whatever. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 81 is 9, plus or minus. What I've seen students do in the past is just go through and write, like before they've done any of the work at the bottom of the box, they'll just write n equals plus or minus and then leave it blank. That way they just don't forget. Or like when they're taking a quiz, if they see that the variable is being squared, they'll just add that before they even solve it so they don't forget. Or they'll make a note at the top of their paper to remind them not to do that when they see that section. Number 16, negative 25q squared equals negative 49. Okay, we're multiplying negative 25 times q squared. So that is your cat here. This negative 25 is hanging out and they've got to move. So you're left with q squared equals, well, the negative on the top and the bottom are going to cancel out, becoming positive. So you're left with 49 over 25. You can try to divide that. It's not going to work out to be a whole integer. You get 1.96. I accidentally hit another button there. Not pretty. Don't put that. Leave this as a fraction. When you go to square root both sides to get rid of that q being squared, that's going to work out to give you the square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 25 is 5. Always include the plus or the minus unless you get 0 as an answer. 4 more to go, and you are going to feel prepared for this quiz, ready to take on homework 4, ending the quarter strong, feeling confident with equations. You guys got this. All right, so 17 is negative 4a squared equals, minus 37 equals negative 137. Okay, lots going on here. Don't let this negative throw you off. This is going to technically end up being 3 steps. This is your intro to multi-step equations, which is the next thing that we're going to do starting next week after your quiz this Friday. So, adding that negative 37 on each side, the constant that is not connected to your variable. So you've got negative 4a squared. We're going to say like that's the dog almost in this situation. Like they're just chilling, whatever. You need to go outside. I don't know, whatever storyline you need to make up to help you understand this. So now you've still got the birdie on your shoulder, and we're going to say this negative 4 is still that pesky cat hanging around. You do this one first because that's not connected. And by connected, I mean side by side, or it's not being multiplied or divided. Addition and subtraction are first when you're solving an equation. So you're going to divide by that negative 4. A squared equals negative 100 divided by negative 4 gives me a positive, how many quarters in a dollar? 4 quarters with 25 cents. 25. So then this is where it becomes 3 steps. First step was to add. Second step was to divide. Third step is to square root both sides. So a equals plus or minus 5. And that is a little messy, I apologize. Plus or minus 5. Okay. Woo! Getting a little bit harder for these last 4. Hang in there. You guys can do it. It's really great practice leading you guys up to the next unit. You could have something like this on your quiz, so you want to make sure that you are practicing these and making sure your work is neat and you're not just writing a final answer because you're wasting your time watching this video lesson and listening to me talk if you're not doing it properly, because it's going to set you up for failure when I check your homework and on your quiz. I already went ahead and drew my brick wall. So 21 here, again, that's like the dog laying around. 3 is my cat that's being annoying underneath my chair. 2 is that little bird. So whatever needs to be moved by adding or subtracting happens first. So I see addition, so I know the opposite is to subtract. So W squared divided by 3 equals, because that cancels out, 48 minus 21 gives me 27. So, got to get rid of that cat. We are dividing by 3, so the inverse is to multiply by 3. Cancels out. W squared equals 81. Square root both sides, cancels out. W equals square root of 81. You guys know this is 9. I'm going to go over here so I can write that neater. W equals plus or minus 9. Okay, that's my final answer over here. Got a little crazy in that one. When I have so many steps, it's hard to fit it all on this little whiteboard. Okay, I'm going to run out of time for these last 2, so I'm going to end this video, and I am going to make one short little one with the last 2 because these are the most challenging ones on the paper for y'all. So stay tuned. This one is going to have a short little third video as well.